known X-ray sources and extreme ultraviolet sources by a factor of 100. In addition, many new objects
Scemo lo faccia roba nel vecchio. Ti so che taglia. Ma no, lei no, oh, ma che c'è questi? Ti gioca tutto te.
Paul! Paul! It says battery on this. It does.
It's not going to last, is it?
It's flashing battery. Wasn't it? That was to us, wasn't it? That was to Visionary. Yeah? Where'd that go? Another one. Huh? Oh, is she? Got another goal, is it? Got another goal. It looks like it. There's another goal. Yeah, another one. I'm going to have to put an over 18 on this video, the swearing that's going on. Where's the ball, Bob?
It's in the goal, just.
Yeah. Nice goal.
Huh?
Nice goal, eh?
Yeah.
over the barrel. I've lost it. How long to go, Bob? How long to go? No, me. I'm freezing. Ten for stall.
One Michael in there, man!
Mike, come on.
6-all now. Yeah, really good. knew which way that was going to bounce, did he? Just about.
What was it, 6-4, wasn't it? No, was it 6-5? Was it 6 for who else? For us?
Yeah.
With us?
Yeah,
Good luck.
Last week. Ah. You know it?
That's good.
You know. Okay. Aye.
Good luck.
Shame we won, wasn't it? Oh, we don't count us off, mate. The referee never moved from the bloody arch.
Go on, let's have a limp, Dean.
The
That's it, Dean. Put it on,
My
Dean.
limp's worse than his limp.
That's it.
Hang on, if you keep still, I'll have to... Will you stand together?
That's it.
You know what I'd like to do?
Have you focused it?
I haven't touched it up. Oh, stop it, Richard. Don't put your hand.
Yeah.
You moved it.
There's an island on there.
Island.
Is it box of ours?
Yeah, most of it's here.
You going down now, Jed? Yeah,
You know, yeah.
Can I come with you or do you come with me?
Yeah, come in, yeah.
Before that, I mean, having seen all that hot stuff from Simon and Sybil earlier, it's hard for me to recall, although it is true that I actually started my career at Radio 1 in 1970.
As the wrong classroom, Kirk falls in love. But Dear John USA has his doubts in 45 minutes. First, a very special edition of The Sky at Night with Patrick Moore.
35 years ago, Mauna Kea was a desolate, extinct volcano with almost no life on it. Now it's the home of one of the finest and most modern observatories in the world. Here we have the Keck telescope, the largest optical telescope ever made, with its 396 segmented mirror. Here we have the UKIRT, United Kingdom Infrared Telescope, which can peer into the dusty regions where stars are being born. And here we have the James Clerk Maxwell Telescope, which sees in a different way again. This is about as high as a man can work efficiently, because we're at nearly 14,000 feet above the Pacific in the island of Hawaii. And your lungs are taking in only about 39% of their normal intake of oxygen, so you have to be very careful. It's been described as halfway to space, but halfway isn't the whole way. We still get clouds here, and you can't control the weather. If you want absolute perfection, you've got to go into space. Since the start of our Sky at Night programs in April 1957, we've seen the beginning of the space age and its development. At the start, the Russians took the lead with their rocket launching ground at Baikonur in Kazakhstan. Last time we did a Sky at Night anniversary, I couldn't come here to Baikonur, which is the most important of the Russian space launching grounds, the equivalent of the American Cape Canaveral, because visitors definitely weren't allowed. From here, almost all the most important Russian space missions have been launched, including the very first one of all, Sputnik 1. It was the first man-made object to orbit the Earth, a tremendous achievement, and it ushered in a whole new era of exploration. The Sputnik, or rather part of its launcher, was well seen as it passed over Britain. But outside Russia, this great 250-foot dish at Jodrell Bank was the only telescope which could track it. In a way, that was lucky, because the telescope was in trouble, and so was the man who masterminded it.
I think a few days before it was launched, I said to one of my colleagues, we needed a miracle to save us, because we were in such disfavor and in so much debt. And that miracle did come on October the 4th, 1957, from behind the Iron Curtain.
Smaller than Sputnik was Explorer 1, America's first artificial satellite, masterminded by Wernher von Braun and launched, like so many others, from Cape Canaveral. It was tremendously important because it led to the discovery of the zones of charged radiation orbiting the Earth, now known as the Van Allen zones, in honor of James Van Allen, the principal investigator. This was really the first major discovery of the space age. Meanwhile, over at Baikonur, the Russians were having great successes. In addition to sending up the first space satellite, the Russians put the first man into space, Yuri Gagarin, in April 1961. But in 1959, they had already started sending unmanned rockets to the moon. Luna 1 went past the moon and sent back important information, such as the fact that the moon has no magnetic field. Luna 2 crash-landed on the moon, and Luna 3 went around the moon and sent back the first pictures of the moon's far side that we can never see from Earth because it's always turned away from us. And we were, in fact, the first to show those pictures on the Sky at Night, because the Russians had sent them straight over. They had, in fact, used my own maps of the moon to correlate the far side pictures with the side of the moon we knew about. But it wasn't only the moon. They also started sending rockets to Mars, with mixed success, and to Venus, and their Venera probes, all 16 of them, had been very successful indeed. They sent back the first actual picture from the surface of Venus. The Venera program was a long one and extremely important. Meanwhile, the Americans were concentrating upon manned flight. I am at Cape Canaveral, the main American rocket launching ground, and from here, most of the important scientific missions have been sent up. This is a Mercury capsule, less than 9 feet high. And it was in Mercury in May 1961 that Alan Shepard became the first American in space. He made a suborbital hop lasting less than 20 minutes. And then it was also in Mercury that John Glenn completed the first orbit round the Earth by an American. The last Mercury was that flown by Gordon Cooper in 1963, and there the suit he actually wore. He made 22 orbits of the Earth. In turn, Mercury was followed by the Gemini program, which was succeeded by Apollo, the mission for reaching the moon. Just look at the size of the VAB, the Vehicle Assembly Building, much the largest structure on Cape Canaveral, and there are very few larger anywhere in the world. And it's here that the great rockets are assembled before being taken out to the launching pad. The Americans went ahead with their moon program, and it was this, plus the idea of a space race, which really caught the public imagination. On the 16th of July, 1969, the huge Saturn V rocket lifted off, taking 3 men on their way to the moon.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
The climax came on July the 20th, when the lunar module touched down on the bleak rocks of the lunar Sea of Tranquility.
Down 2.5. Forward. Forward. That's 30 feet down, 2.5. Picking up some dust. 30 feet, 2.5 down. Straight shadow. 4 forward. 4 forward. Drifting to the right a little. Down a half. 30 seconds. Forward. Just. Ready? Contact light. Okay, engine stop. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
A few hours later, first Neil Armstrong, then Edwin Aldrin, stepped out onto the surface of the moon.
I'm going to step off the limb now. It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
They found a strange world. I don't think anyone's ever bettered Buzz Aldrin's description of the lunar scene as magnificent desolation. Afterwards, I talked to Neil Armstrong.
The Earth is quite beautiful from space and from the moon. It looks quite small and quite remote, but it's very blue and covered with white lace and of the clouds, and the continents are clearly seen, although they have very little color from that distance.
You're one of the very, very few people, I think, whose opinion on this is really worth having. In fact, there are only 4 of you. Do you think, from your knowledge of the moon, having been there, that it is going to be possible in the foreseeable future to set up scientific bases there on anything like a large scale?
Oh, I'm quite certain that we'll have such bases in our lifetime. Somewhat like the Antarctic stations and similar scientific outposts, continually manned.
This is Mission Control at Houston, Texas, the very heart of the American manned space program. In fact, all the manned flights, including, of course, the Apollos, have been, and still are, controlled from here. Apollo 17 was the last in the series, and this was the most scientific of all, because it took the first qualified scientist to the moon. Of course, all the astronauts knew a great deal about science, but this was different. He was Dr. Harrison Jack Schmitt, who was a geologist and been trained as an astronaut specially for the mission. His knowledge proved invaluable, and when walking around the moon, he made a most interesting discovery.
Wait a minute. What? Where are the reflections? I've been fooled once. There is orange soil. Well, don't move it till I see it. It's all over. Orange!
For a time, it was thought that this indicated recent lunar volcanic activity. In fact, it didn't. The orange color turned out to be due to very small, ancient orange glassy beads, but fascinating nonetheless. The commander of Apollo 17 was Eugene Cernan.
My overall impressions of the moon are really overshadowed by my impressions of looking back at the Earth. The moon itself it's been called like a sandy beach. It's colorless. It's all those bland things that we think of as being unbeautiful, but it is beautiful. It's majestic. It's got towering mountains, and it's got a tremendously overpowering landscape. And yet the most significant thing about being on the moon is to realize you are in effect standing in the middle of a three-dimensional charcoal picture and looking back through the blackness of space, through the blackness of space that is filled with sunlight yet, and looking at the Earth, because the Earth, its life, its color, its beauty, and to me, far beyond even stepping on on the surface of the moon is to think back and look back at home, at our star, at our Earth, at our planet.
Well, the Earth looks beautiful because of its atmosphere, but there's no atmosphere on the moon. I wonder, what was the sky like?
Well, it's hard to imagine that one can look into blackness and be surrounded by sunlight. That's a paradox, but that's exactly what it is. When you are in sunlight on the surface of the moon, if you look and concentrate very, very heartily, you can see stars out there. And of course, you can see predominantly the Earth in its multi-blue colors out there. When you go behind the moon, when you're flying, of course, when we're on the moon, we were in sunlight the whole time. But when we were flying around the moon, we went into darkness, into the shadow of the moon itself. And then you are in probably the blackest black a human being can imagine in his mind. You are out of sight of the Earth. You are out of sight of the reflection of anything except the stars. And there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of stars. And it's so black, you cannot even see the surface of the moon that you're flying, just maybe 80 kilometers above.
On the moon, the sky is black all the time. There's no air to scatter the sunlight around and make the sky blue. But there's more to it than that. Light is a wave motion, and the distance between one wave crest and the next is called the wavelength. If the wavelength is shorter than that of light, we have ultraviolet, X-rays, and gamma rays. If the wavelength is longer than that of light, we have infrared, microwaves, and radio waves. Most of these, apart from visible light and some of the radio waves, are blocked by the Earth's atmosphere. So from ground level, you can't study them. The higher you go, the less air there is above you to block the radiations. That's why Mauna Kea is so useful. But even here, at nearly 14,000 feet, there's still a good deal of atmosphere above you. And that's why we want to go higher. We want to go into space. And the obvious way is to launch satellites. Satellites have told us more about astronomy than we could ever have learned otherwise. For example, what about X-ray astronomy? That began in 1962 with the discovery of an X-ray source by a rocket. But X-rays can't get down to the Earth from space, and that's why space research